am.
All right, 1, 2, 3, 5, go.
Hello, everyone. This is Wargroove podcast number 8. We have today me, Basic, and today we have a new face. So I'll let him introduce him first. Cleaner Code, go ahead.
Oh, hi, I'm Cleaner Code. I'm new here. I saw this YouTube channel, sort of what got me into it. That one of the guys recommended, like, if you're interested in playing, just join. So I was like, yeah, I like this game. I'll join. And so I'm here now.
Yeah, new to the community, new to the podcast.
All right.
Awesome.
Dr. Killsauce?
I'm
Glad to be
Killsauce.
here.
Oh, yeah, and I'm Killsauce. Hopefully by now you know of me. If not, it's probably better that way.
Gimbal, go ahead.
Hello, I'm Gimbal. I haven't been on in a while, but I am one of the main admins behind Groove of War, and I do a lot of Wargroove stuff.
Hey, I'm Red Jams. I make a bunch of content, so you can follow me. Just search up on YouTube, and you should be able to find that.
Hello, I'm Master of Math. I'm an active player and map tester.
He came in second on Groove of War 2, on the last Groove of War. Important.
I came in third.
That's important.
So today
I'm
we
good top 3.
today we have some good topics for you guys. We're gonna start with the more juicy one, in my opinion. So, new Wargroove mod, changes galore, rebalancing Wargroove, making a Groove of War balance mod, and we have one of the creators here, so that's awesome.
Now, I think we did just talk before stream that it might be rebranded to it's not Groove of War balance mod. It's just they're gonna read because it's
Don't fuss on the details.
Yeah.
This is a new thing.
Yeah.
It's still getting made.
And we just want to say it ahead of time that it's not going to be like the main way to play Wargroove. It's just sort of a side project.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Almost
We'll
like a
get
what
there.
if
We'll
type
get
situation, but we'll get there. Yeah.
So I'll just start with a small intro that's on the document that was spread around, and then I'll pass it to Gimbal since is one of the main developers of the thing. So their goals are to make parts of the game more enjoyable and interesting, not just better balanced, to experiment between updates to the mod as to learn more about what makes enjoyable aspects in a competitive game like Wargroove, to give the community an alternative way to play outside the main competitive format, for any changes made to be consistent with their thematic design, to gather information for a potential Wargroove update or sequel, to personally learn more about competitive game development. What the mod isn't is a replacement for the main competitive format, which was just said, a monopoly on mod use in events. Other mods can be featured in events like Test Your Metal, a rebalance based on simple number changes, something for everyone. We realize that while the mod is intended to improve the game's balance, not everyone will agree with certain changes. If some of these goals aren't met, but people enjoy themselves, then that is also considered good enough. So now, Gimbal.
Yeah, so I guess I'll give a bit of a quick history about it. So me and CMA, or CM Avellis, or Avellis, like whichever you prefer, we were chatting, and I said to him, hey, like, you are interested in doing some modding stuff. I'm interested in like making a couple of balance changes, like making small mods. And the original idea was like, let's just do like a couple small things. We'll edit some like values to damage. We'll edit some groove charge rates, so like medium to slow or slow to medium. And like, let's give it a shot. And then we did. And then I think we made an update that I made a small map for. The idea was to have like more units be available as well. So I'm a big proponent of making maps that allow wheeled units. Although, you know, in current competitive balance, that isn't always a good idea. Trebuchets are a little bit too dominant right now. So we made this mod, and we were giving it a bash, and then I played a few matches with some people. I played some matches with Sneaky, and we're having a great time. And then I was like, oh, well, let's play around with it more. And we were really enjoying just like making changes and trying new stuff. we ran into some engine limitations, so some of the changes got a bit interesting. Like naval had to get reworked completely just because of the way movement works on in the game. So yeah, we were doing that, and then we were like, let's introduce it to the public. Let's like see what people think about this. It's just going to be this little fun project that a few of us are working on. And we did get some feedback from some people. Like I showed it to Maury Bessakia. He makes like a lot of the really good maps that people enjoy, and he saw the trebuchet range change and fell in love. So yeah, like we were just having a bit of a good time, and then that led to, hey, let's like put it in a test your metal bracket, and we'll see how it goes. And ultimately, that is where we're at right now. We're about to start Test Your Metal June. There is one bracket for it. It has a current Groove of War 4 map that has like one tile change. So we'll see if that plays out well, allowing all-wheeled units.
Yes.
Kilsos, I believe we played on it as well.
Yeah, well, we played. Well, I sort of really wanted to test the naval changes, but they were sort of bugged at the time we played them, so we didn't get to do anything crazy. I played Ryota versus your Sigrid, and I think you just didn't make some correct decisions, I think, and I still managed to Ryota kill you from across the map, even with his changes.
Yeah.
How do you kill
So-
if it reduces the damage after every jump?
Well, I mean, I didn't jump like 18 times, but I think, honestly, I know that. I was trying to pull up the actual page where the changes are. If we want to talk about this one in particular, Ryota, it literally just changes the groove damage per jump from a ramping plus 5% to a minus 5%,
Yeah.
which is interesting. It makes it so you can't do the things where you set up a whole line of your own troops to jump over to increase your damage and just destroy the enemy's formation at the very end of a jump. If anything, you almost have to do it the reverse way. So you have to get your first few jumps on the enemy, which means you also have to have Ryota in a more risky spot in the first place. So hopefully it makes him for the better. There's fear that it's been nerfed too much, but honestly, at fast charge, I always feel like Ryota his groove was supposed to be just like a repositioning tool, almost more so than a mass damage tool. And this lets you play around with that.
Yeah, this is one of the, I would say probably the most controversial change we made. And a lot of people were like, why didn't you just change it to base damage? And I think what we saw with Ryota was ramping was just like how super strong he was. And like part of the reason we did this was it was meant to keep with like the theme of, well, they put ramping in as a mechanic, so let's try reversing it and see if he's still good. And it does change like the way you play him pretty heavily because it's more about using it as a repositioning tool. Like you can get some damage off of it, but when it comes to groove charges and like what you can do with them, there isn't, to my knowledge, I think Wolfar's the only other fast charger that has like a damage based groove. Like all the other grooves are more like Mercia has healing. Who are the other fast chargers in the game actually? Emmerich is a defensive one.
Yeah, Nuru was changed, so she's not fast anymore.
Yeah, so like getting damage off of a fast charge is like pretty rare, and even like in Wolfar's case, like sure he can like one shot a unit potentially. He can't do like a mass amount of damage. He's not a Ragnar. He's not a Dark Mercia here. But so you have to be kind of careful about like if you give someone a damage groove that they can get very early in the game and they can get on a regular basis, like how good that has to be.
Yeah,
So
realistically, damage grooves synergize with themselves. So, you hit the enemy army, and now you can take your commander after using your groove and hit those weakened units and get more groove charge.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, you have to be very careful about that kind of thing. And like that was the approach we went with for this. And I'm interested to see how he does, because I was playing around with him a bit. I mean, you killed me with him. I played a game at Shu with him and I won. And yeah, like it's going to be interesting to see how he plays out in this like new Ryota style.
I'm gonna be honest. I expect Ryota to just be a worse version than 1.3.
I don't think it's a. I don't think it's a worse version.
Because like
Yes. Go ahead.
1.3 had medium charge, so going medium to fast is a big buff.
But he could do damage at long range, actual long range, like across the map, and now he can't. So he lost some tools to get to fast charge.
I don't know about that. I think he can still go across the map. It's just now it's not like now you just have to make it like less jumps, so you'd have to put your units in a line so you're not making extra stops on
I'm
the way.
comparing to 1.3 where you could jump as many jumps as you wanted and the damage was fixed.
I think it's like
Yeah.
better than 1.3, but I still think it's a bit overkill of a nerf. Like I think there was consensus that Riot at fast, like before 2.0, was the right buff, and then Chucklefish was like okay, and then they added some extra stuff, and
Yeah,
then
the
he was
damage
super
was
OP.
not needed, yeah.
And like I don't think we have to be like too concerned with Rhoda being a little bit overtuned. Like if it turns out that fast charge makes him a bit too strong, because like if you have a commander that's a bit too strong but is like has a really high like skill cap and really high skill floor, that's more acceptable than if like they're really OP and they're not that hard to use, kind of like with Nuru or yeah.
It's when they start doing too much that they become a problem, right? It's not being very, very good at one very specific thing. It's when they become very, very good at a lot of things, which was the Ryota and Nuru camp before. And obviously Terry in the past.
One thing you have to remember with Leota is that like if he's like weaker than Ragna, then there's probably gonna be very little reason to use him compared to Ragna, because Ragna's just really, really simple, and like if he does less damage than her and is less effective, then no one's gonna play Leota.
Yeah.
Which is like not something you want. You want the higher skill commanders to see play, but like while the like easier to use commanders will see play regardless.
Yeah, I mean in this case it's like Ragnar's slow charge, Ryota's fast charge, so like the idea is he gets to use his groove more often. So like it is about finding that right balance, and I'm not gonna be like, oh, like I'm completely right. Like it's very much we're doing this because I want to be careful about him being too strong still.
Yeah.
There was some other stuff as well. Like I think the idea of this form of like if you jump less, or if you jump more, you do less damage with each jump, offers counterplay from both sides. So if you're fighting someone, like they're encouraged to leave gaps so that he jumps more, so he does less damage, and you as the Ryota player can then fill those gaps yourself. So there's a back and forth there. Like it creates this like interesting dynamic, I feel anyway. Whether that actually turns out to be the case or not is something we'll find out, and I'm interested.
Yeah, the problem might just be the amount of reduction. Maybe that's my problem with it. Maybe if it said something like -2% or minus 3%.
I think maybe there should be a floor on it. Like it goes down to, say, just throwing a number out there, like at minimum it does something like 25%.
Yeah, and I hate the
damage.
idea that it eventually does 0.
It actually eventually heals currently.
Yeah, that's even worse. That's like,
oh yeah, we left that in as an Easter egg, and then people found it immediately, and we were like, oh, whoops. That was just meant to be like a funny joke that we left in, because that itself was a bit of a, not really like a dig at Chocofish, but they did say that he'd be capped on damage at 100% originally, and then didn't. So that was meant to be us doing like our own version of that. And then people found it immediately, and they were like, wait, why is he healing? And we were just like, this was meant to be a really niche joke that nobody was meant to find.
Yeah, you weren't expecting people to do 10 jumps.
Yeah.
To be fair, I laughed when I first saw it.
It was funny, but like, yeah, that's gonna get taken out. Like, he won't go into healing. We did actually think of it, having like a commander with a groove that jumps and heals, though. Like that is like it's not something we'll maybe necessarily put in, but it's something that we're like, oh, this would be like fun to program, and like
Light Ragnar.
Before you guys start screwing around with those ideas, please fix twins. There's a heal there that needs love.
Hey, we did buff twins.
So it's fixed now. It's good.
Well,
I
do you
mean-
know? Did you remember what happened to the twins there?
They now do both grooves every time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say I would hold off on doing any more buffs. Than
Oh
that,
yeah, of course.
because
I'm
that-
just joking a bit.
Oh yeah.
But if for some reason we want to keep it separate, I would say you eventually maybe increase the heal on the twins thing, but you'd have to buff both grooves individually, which I sort of like the thematic. I like the theme of this, where you get to cast both.
Yeah. It's
Yeah, this is pretty much like, because that was the other thing. Like when we go into this, it's like, how do we like thematically stick with like what exists in the game? That's why we did reverse ramping, was because ramping's a mechanic. So like, let's keep it in, but do it the other way around. And with twins, it's like, hey, like let's, instead of it being a choice, you get both, and that keeps their unique mechanic of having two grooves while also buffing them.
Yeah. I remember we talking about this, and honestly, I'm joking, completely joking about this, because twins might be quite strong right now because of that, and it definitely needs some testing. Because doing both grooves will actually inflate the offensive power of twins by quite a bit. Because now, no, you can place the fire to start the displacing your opponent, but you can also place the healing right on top of it, so you can actually move your units to force your opponent to move out of those positions. So when you're attacking like the headquarters or something, you now have added power to do so. While before you put the fire and the fire didn't do anything for several turns. So it definitely will need quite a bit of testing before we can say it needs any changing actually.
Just a small thing. Right now, you cast fire first and then water second, right? But then you have an option to just cast fire because you don't need water. But when you do that, you leave out the option to only do water. I don't know when you want to just only do water, but yeah, there's a thing that was missing.
That was like, this is the easiest way we can program this to work.
I mean, I guess you could just add like another
Button. You
like
would have to have like another groove button. Yep.
Yeah, you
I
just
mean,
add another option for water, and then the second cast would be the fire. This way, you could just only cast water if you don't want fire.
I think there is like a way we can do it. It's just this way requires less.
No, that's the thing. Like you just need like before you had two buttons for grooves, one for water and one for fire. You would just need to change. You would just basically change the fire. So the fire after the fire being used gives you the option to do water, but the other way around doesn't work. So when you do water, it just does water, and you get all the options, like all the combinations. Just fire, just water, and fire and water.
Yeah, it really was just like, I mean, the idea is like if you want to use both, which you will most of the time.
Yeah, I doubt there will be situations where you won't use both.
Yeah, it's not like you can like move again after casting fire, but I mean, it was just the amount of extra effort we'd have to put in to have just water as an option is like
It was a non-zero amount, and it's one guy doing it. So you know what?
Yeah, like we can put it in. Like if there's enough requests, if people really want us to have water only as an option, then like I'm sure we can make that
I
work.
doubt we'll get there because as we all or almost everyone agreed that it was pretty unanimous that both grooves from twins were not strong enough in most situations anyway. So doing a single groove should still not be strong enough, right? So that didn't change. So that option, while still like it's good to have, it's probably still not a good option.
Well, we'll see. But I think the main thing is you don't want to like go like drive yourself crazy trying to like make this kind of groove really perfect, and then you realize that this approach doesn't work because like maybe 2 turns of commander not fighting is too much of a commitment. So if it turns out you have to take a different option, you don't want to have to spend a crazy amount of time just to get this one working perfectly.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, let's switch to another
No.
change.
I know the next one I want to talk about because I requested this change since forever, and I'm really glad that this got in. So I want to hear it from Gimbal, why they actually did it and their thoughts about it. So you actually went with the option of removing units from Wargroove, which is something that I personally love. So, what's up with that?
So, all right. So people have had a lot of opinions about like why we did the way we did it. I'll start by saying we wanted to get rid of Trebs. That was it. Like we just wanted to remove Trebs as an option. But how do you do that in a way that makes sense, like thematically, was the challenge. So we were like, okay, what is a trebuchet, and what other units does it have in common? What other units have something in common with that? And we were like, okay, well, when you use a trebuchet, and when you see it on the combat animation, it's like one trebuchet. So we were like, oh, what other units show up as one unit? And it was like, oh, well, transport show up, dragon shows up, ballista shows up, ships show up. And we were like, okay, well, if Duru didn't have those options, would you still be good? And that was the approach I came at it from. It wasn't like bottom down or like top down. It wasn't like trying to figure
You
out.
weren't you weren't targeting specific units. You just were trying to specifically hit Treb, and you saw something that thematically could all tie together.
Yes.
And that's where you got those choices from.
Yes. And like when we looked at it from a balance point after that, it was like, will Nuru still be worth using? It wasn't like, oh, if we get rid of harpoon ships and barges, is that enough of a nerf? It was more of a, if we do this specific change to her, will she still be viable? That was like the mindset behind it. And I think we've hit a decent point where we've removed like a lot of her options, but we've also like left her with enough options that she's still really strong. So
Yeah. She still has Knight.
I think at most she might need to go too fast, but that's it. Like I think right now she's probably right exactly where she needs to be.
Yeah,
I think this will probably put her strictly into like a situational pick right now, which isn't bad. I think that's fine.
That's ideal. Like that's exactly where you want every single commander, right? Never being the best option for anything. For everything, I mean, but always being really, really good in specific situations.
Yeah, because like, we're not trying to take a commander from being like one of the best picks in the game to being like high tier, or take like if a commander ends up in like mid tier, that's fine. Like that's an acceptable place for someone to be, where like they get picked sometimes and it's good enough.
Like my take on it, and I've been very vocal about Trebs and how like the problem with Nuru and Treb isn't Nuru's groove, but the fact that like Trebs are really OP and Nuru just like gets past the map safeguards. So like I think this approach is just kind of like a cut the corners approach to trying to balance Nuru, kind of like avoiding like the lingering like Treb issue and dealing with that separately, and just like removing anything that could pose a problem with Nuru. Just like it's not a terrible idea, but as like a long-term solution, I would prefer if like you don't restrict her options. Like maybe you can restrict her naval options, because like thematically it's not like so clear as to why she can just summon naval like out of the blue.
Thematically, she can summon everything because she's an alien that has access to technology that doesn't exist on Wargroove, so she just summons everything from everywhere. That's her theme, so that's not.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I think you can make a case for just banning all the naval units, like Merfolk, and those also create like balance problems, because one extra unit in naval is a big deal. And then like if you get Trebs at the right like price and the right power level, then her being able to get past map safeguards won't really matter, because maps won't have to be so tough on their safeguards.
Yeah, but people then will start doing more the like, oh, you step on the road, summon dragon, 80% on commander. Like those problems will still exist, even if you just
that's not a problem. We haven't
need to fix like half the unit, right?
Newer dragon hasn't been a problem. That's been totally fine. And like newer golem, same thing. It's just really been like newer treb and also maybe newer ballista.
Newer warship also.
And that's where the mindset comes of like you're talking about like targeting her in a way that like you kind of just remove the problems, whereas like what we're doing is essentially like cutting out like a big selection of units she can summon and being like, is she balanced if we do that?
Yeah.
To like a certain level. And like we're taking, like you said, we're cutting corners, but I think ultimately, as long as it's consistent in terms of like a theme, then I'm happy with it. Also, I was watching a lot of Star Trek at the time when I did this, and the transporter pads on Star Trek have like 5 pads, and they do like one, and they all look like some individual things. So like I was a little bit influenced by Star Trek at that point.
Yeah, the transport pads are too small.
Yeah. The only thing, the answer to the cutting corners part that I honestly disagree that it's cutting corners is that honestly one of the major problems that Nuru had was she was too flexible. Like most commanders have very specific uses, and Nuru basically has no specific nothing. She basically can do almost every single thing you can think about in the game. She can do. She can do AOE. She can do long range. She can do siege. She can do water. She can do everything. And taking some options away from her, I think, in the end, just makes her like a better designed unit. Like getting too much stuff is not actually a good thing.
Yeah, and like it also means that, let's say you wanted to have a map design that had way more income, like we're talking like more than 2,000 per turn. Suddenly, like if you look at her now, it's like, oh, well, she can't just like summon a golem or something. She can't break map design that are like a much higher income just because of like that was her limitation. So like now she can exist on maps that have like much higher income because she can't just do whatever she wants for one turn.
So like, dispute like this higher income kind of thing, because like we even saw in Butterfly, like the existence of Neuro Dragon wasn't like a big deal. Like having higher income doesn't necessarily like create problems with more expensive units, and like if you get the right Treb balance, then being able to summon like really expensive stuff like Trebs isn't a big deal. Like on Butterfly, the main issue Neuro had was that she could summon Trebs and she could like do crazy stuff with Trebs. Because Trebs are like a broken unit.
It always comes back to Trebs.
But isn't that a really bad example? Like I don't really like Butterfly as an example here. Like I'm sure there are good examples, but Butterfly definitely isn't one of them, right? Low on roads, so you don't really want to use dragons. And basically, Nuru Treb was completely broken on that map. And every time you saw Nurus on both sides, they would just go Nuru Treb the HQ of their opponent, and the mirror match was just that. So those matches were super ugly. Like,
I'll be honest,
I
think this needs more testing, and I don't think we need to just stay talking about Nuru the whole time. You know, we'll try this change. I think another theoretical change is one that Chucklefish didn't want to do because it was unfun, is the human... Same as right now, except unit summons exhausted.
Yeah, that's
so horrible. There's some sort of counterplay. So there could be options, and maybe that multiple co idea we were talking about could happen. But the truth is, we should switch off of Nuru now. We really just got to see how it plays out.
Yeah, we've talked a lot. Like, it is very much like one of the things I don't think I mentioned on this podcast yet is like I'm not taking feedback too seriously until people have had time to play it.
Yeah, everyone's just spitballing right now.
Yeah.
All right.
So we'll see how Nuru is in a month.
So
let's go to some of the. Let's skip over. Let's do these really small changes that I consider them really small in Caesar, medium to slow. Honestly, I think that's probably a good play. He'll still have his cancer moves when he does get his groove, but hopefully you're in a position where you've been able to have a positive game board state before he gets his groove, and you have, even if he does destroy half your army, you still have a bigger army than him, and there are options available.
So many words. Excellent change. I'll just say that.
Yes. Excellent change, and anybody sort of disagree with that change? A Sneaky Dragon's not here, so we don't have to worry about him.
One thing I saw was that I think it was Spacefront said this, that he wasn't a big fan, and I actually agree with like Spacefront's logic in this regard. So I'll go with his point was that he thinks that like Caesar's Groove is one of those like it just wins the game too hard when it comes out. So we'll see. Like this was like going from medium to slow is like the obvious change.
Yeah.
But we'll see if it actually like plays out.
Yeah. But
I think
like
it puts it in line with similar grooves,
that,
like with like
that
Vesper
argument is
and
exactly why it needs to be slow. If it
So-
just wins the game, it needs to come later in the game. It's like it's obvious. It's the pyramid that you build in Civilization. Like if it just wins the game, it needs to be an end game stuff.
Yeah, and I think slow charging grooves at the point should be a game winning move for the most time. Up
Yeah.
and very slow has no space in the
Yeah.
no design space in this game currently.
Very slow. You can't really play consistently on most maps that we're currently using on 30-minute chess. So very slow has no bearing in current gameplay, I think.
Yeah,
there
unless
any-
you. Oh, go on.
Are there any very slow grooves right now?
No.
Oh, okay.
There
Yeah, the
was
only
Sedge
one was
before.
Sedge, and he was considered like the worst commander at very slow.
Mhm.
He was down there anyway.
Yeah, he was down there. I mean, hypothetically spitballing, if we had like a very slow commander, I'd want it to do something like completely obscene, like
Oh yeah.
damage all enemies on the map 50%
70%.
HP.
Yeah. It
Yeah,
has,
it just
at very slow, it has to win the game.
Very slow. I think Vesper is good very slow. Like I think some other people floated that idea also.
Yeah, Vesper I think is one of those.
I
you
would
could say-
prefer Vesper to get less squares, other than going to very slow.
Yeah, like I
So
think.
like
So I actually I just want to make a note on Vesper. We didn't change any double or triple stuff aside from the twins. So thieves, rifles, and Vesper, and Wolfhard got left alone. Also, hello dog.
Yeah,
Um,
it's here. There's not much I can do about it.
But anyway, we didn't want to change any double or triple stuff because I wanted to see how they would shake out a bit more first. I am up for doing changes to Vesper because it's pretty apparent that Vesper is top tier right now. And I think like the two obvious choices, or I guess the three obvious choices for Vesper are: she goes to very slow, she gets less squares, or she loses range. Those are the three options right now.
The problem with
Problem
very
I
slow
would
is
have-
that you put a commander at very slow, and even if the commander has a really strong groove, it becomes a commander that even if they're actually balanced because they're so strong with their very slow groove, it becomes a commander that is only actually playable at very high level plays, where the player can actually play a strategy where they can survive healthy enough to get to that point of the game. So I don't think it makes the commander better for general gameplay, while you can certainly get it to a balanced state anyway. But it becomes like too limited, in my opinion.
I think the difficulty with if trying to reduce the number of tiles is just that I think it's gonna be hard to strike the right balance between like her groove charge and the number of tiles. You just decrease her tiles by one, she's gonna be way too weak. And then if you reduce her range, it's gonna be hard to find like to make that impactful enough, because like using it in Vespers is a pretty strong option right now, or like using it close to where she is. So it's like it's not clear that makes her really strong. But if you make it very slow, you just delay her groove a bit more, match it closer to the power. Like with Sedge, part of the reason why like he was really not that fun is because he has a long-term groove, but he can't make back any of the gains until he reaches that very slow threshold. While Vesper is someone who can use their groove right away, so that's quite a big difference. And then also like now in a lot of maps we see now, they give you a free groove in the cap phase. Like that was pretty rare in a lot of the older 1.3 maps. So like you're gonna see very slow grooves still, because it's like the difference between very slow and slow proportionately. It's only like a 25% speed decrease. So you're still gonna see it, but you'll have to wait a little bit more.
That's not a very good descriptor, actually, in my opinion. And I think I can put this in words that are simple to understand for everyone. The problem with very slow, just saying it's 25% slower, is that in the same way that lower costed units have a different impact because you can build them earlier in the game, the amount of groove charge you gain also gets harder to come by as the game goes longer. So while the first like half of that very slow groove comes by fairly fast in the early game. As you get to the later stages of the game, usually killing units becomes harder without actually either being straight up ahead or putting your commander in danger. So you actually get less groove as the game goes on. So, like the last 50 points of groove are harder to come by than the first 50. I don't know if I'm explaining this properly. So
No.
increasing it from slow to very slow is not the same thing as going from very fast to fast or fast to medium. Like every single step makes it harder to get to this step after it. So it's a bigger jump.
If you're just focusing at like on the first groove, then yeah, like you can have certain redundancy. Like a lot of like fast chargers are kind of criticized because they end up wasting groove with a lot of the maps. They give you like a lot of free groove charge. Because like Mercia will get groove really early, but then she can't use it for like a whole bunch of turns. So yeah, in that case, then it doesn't make much of a difference. But if you're playing like a really really high level game, then the game will keep going after the first groove, and then like you get the full scope of each of the groove charges because you're charging. You don't have like a few turns of passive charging where there's no interaction, and you don't have like scripted like opening decaps where you get even more free groove charge. You both kind of start at zero and have to work your way.
Yeah.
Vesper isn't even getting changed in this, so I feel like we can move on.
We're talking to the
Yeah,
for
now,
the future.
now we're
Yeah.
just spitballing ideas. Let's go to the next commander.
Dark Mercia.
That was Dark Mercia.
I want to ask why the damage reduction. I know Master really wanted the damage reduction. Why?
I explain it in this is that you have to be careful when you deal with any commander that deals damage, that you don't give her too much.
She was horrible. Just give her medium. I'm so sad for Dark Mercia.
I
No, I
think
think
Remember,
some of
this isn't going to be like Chucklefish balancing speeds. If it turns out that still nobody picks her, even they can just buff her again, and then if she's too strong at 30, they'll just nerf her. It's like this changes are going to be a lot quicker than.
Oh yeah, I'm completely sure it will happen the standard where they buff a commander gets buffed, still no one uses it because they expect it to be bad, but it's actually now good. But because no one uses it, it gets buffed again, and then again, and eventually people find out that the commander is actually good, and by the time they find it out, it's actually super broken, and that will be hilarious, but...
Well, hopefully the test your metal format for the multi-commander should help that, because it's going to force people to play different commanders.
yeah.
So, you
And,
know.
like, we'll
That's the hope.
we'll see. It's very much like in some cases when it came to like buffing anyone, we wanted to make sure that like we were being careful. So Dark Mercia, she deals pure damage, which is like the thing. You know, witches I think are the only other unit that do that. So yeah, like it was just we'll be a bit careful this time. We already have some buffs lined up, so if she needs more, then we can give it to her. But otherwise, like it's very much we'll see how this change goes. Like we're just being a bit careful, like when it comes to dealing things that deal damage. And this also creates like a nice dynamic of Ryota is the fast charge commander that deals low damage. Dark Mercy is the medium charge commander that deals medium damage, and Ragnar's the slow commander that deals high damage. So.
Yeah.
But we'll see. Like that really is what it comes down to.
By the way, don't get me wrong. I was a bit jokingly talking about it. I don't think these 5% will actually change much of Dark Mercy's power. It's not enough of a damage reduction where it will change most matchups. It will probably not mean much for most games. I was just curious about why actually touching the damage.
Yeah, it's just like we want to just
Just
be
a
a bit
nudge.
careful. Yeah, and like there was a proposed like Matthew suggested that it go down to 20%.
Yeah, I heard that before.
And
You just want to be careful, like especially when you buff it to medium. Like the heal is still part of her kit, and like the moment you increase this charge speed, like things like heals become way more important because early in the game, commander can bully stuff. and they might take damage from units. So then you really want that heal. So that's like not to like. So when you have commanders like Sigrid, also like if Sigrid goes to fast charge, she's going to benefit like even more than just getting groove earlier, because getting groove earlier allows her to make better use of the heal.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a double buff, and I think like you have to keep in mind the heal when you're buffing Dark Mercia, because that's kind of like her core mechanic that differentiates her from Ragna.
Yeah, and like you were saying about Sigrid, I mean, we can talk about Sigrid now if you want. That is why we didn't buff Sigrid to
Yeah,
fast.
we can jump to Sigrid.
Like, because if Sigrid gets to the point where she can just fight a bunch, get groove, eat something, and then continue fighting a bunch, like, she could become unstoppable. So, because if you throw her like an expensive unit at her, then she'll just save her groove for that unit, and then she'll have groove again really quickly. And because she has like the capability to constantly brawl, because she heals back to full health effectively, like that makes her really scary. And I didn't want to go down that route where like I can see problems happening with a buff ahead of like the actual buff taking place.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it also like punishes damage that doesn't lead to lethal. So sometimes like I'll do an attack against the commander just to sort of push them back, to make them heal up behind. But if they can like just move forward and use their groove after getting bonus groove from non-lethal damage, then you actually might not want to tag them at all unless you can get lethal.
Yeah, like if you attack her with a sword, the amount of groove she gets is effectively more health than the sword will deal in damage. So
right, or even like a normal pike crit, if it's like near groove charge and you do like 60 damage, if they get groove after that, then they just heal back up to full, and it's like you did nothing.
yeah,
not that it's ever been relevant, but she does only heal the amount of health that she takes from the enemy she kills. Which is almost always you're hitting like a full or near full health unit. But
if you're hitting 4 units, you're getting full health.
There could be, in theory, a time where somebody in the current patch, not that anybody plays Sigrid, but it's just another weakness of hers. You hit her, you surround her with 4 swords that all hit her once, and she's like left at 10% HP, and she has 4 10% swords around her, and she's like, I guess I have to groove one of these for 10% HP.
Yeah, but you would know, like, if that was the case, you would have like something that could clear one of the low health units.
Yeah, I know. That's just something to consider. I think I don't know, the whole teleport thing that she has now. I only played the 2 games, and I don't think. I mean, you grooved one time with it, but
I
messed it up.
It seems super gimmicky. I'll just say that.
So the game we played, I've been kicking myself over this ever since, is that I played units in the wrong order and blocked my own path to eating one of your mages. So to give people like a bit of context, we played a match. Kilsos had a mage in range of one of my harpies, and like he had 2 mages in range of each of my harpies, and I could kill one of the harpies with groove, which would then put Sigrid in a forest that blocked the other mage from critting the second harpy. So like I made a misplay that cost me 2 air units and didn't kill one of his mages, and I was very, very annoyed about that.
Now, one thing that does happen though is with the teleport, Basic, is that you can't surround her anymore. Like if she has groove up, she just can teleport to outside of the surround and kill the unit.
No, yeah, that seems to be great. That seems to be
so.
Great.
We'll see how she goes. I think it's actually a pretty significant buff, especially because she can get to locations. She can teleport to a mountain now, or teleport over a wall, or something crazy like that. So we should see it.
I still like the idea that healers in general should be faster, because like most people don't think about this in this way, but I think it's the best way of thinking about it, which is like healing your commander is something that seems super good. Like you think about the dream heal where you're almost dead and you fully heal. But the reality of the matter is the healing is useful in the early game so you can bully your opponent's units when they can't actually one-shot you. So you can just keep attacking, and because you can't actually be one-shotted, you can use that healing as a detractor so your opponent doesn't attack you. But as soon as you move past a certain phase of the game, usually around 7-8 turns, then you no longer can do it because your opponent can just one-shot you if you get into a bad position. So the healing stops being the most important part of the mechanic, and the kill a unit starts being the most important part of the mechanic for Sigrid, and in the case of Dark Mercia, it starts being the AoE damage instead of the healing. So I would actually not mind those characters to actually get big nerfs to their offensive capabilities so that their healings would show up sooner. I don't know if that would make them too weak, but I think one of the bigger problems with Sigurd right now is that the healing is such a big part of her kit, but you get so few opportunities to actually use it effectively that I think it stops being a good mechanic overall.
Yeah, I think with like Wolfar at the charge he is, Sigrid should probably go to fast. Like obviously we can see how like this movement works and reassess. But I think like as an end game we should get Sigrid as a fast charge in some like form. Especially since we now have Dark Mercia at medium, and as is she can kind of outclass her in the healing department. And then in the killing department you have like Wolfar who's at fast charge and can kill a unit and deal mass damage.
Yeah. And can also kill golems more easily too. So
maybe we just move Wolfar down to medium and call it a day, and then I'll stop banning him all the time.
Really, I don't think Wolfar is that. Wolfar is exactly where I want the strength of the strong commanders of this game.
Like you could nerf him by like reducing his like splash damage, just to make him like less outclassing like Sigrid. So let's say you have Sigrid fast. So then, okay, you have Sigrid who has some healing, and then Wolfar, he does a little bit of the damage extra. That could be like a kind of trade-off. But like, yeah, you don't. Medium is way too big of a nerf.
I think he needs something personally, but I don't know.
Yeah, his win rate wasn't that good for him to deserve nerfs.
Like, there's a big meta change about to happen as far as like Wolfar is concerned. So we'll see how he is at the end of it, and then.
Also, we cannot forget that because maps will change, the maps used for this mod specifically, because trebuchets and whatnot are gonna start being part of the meta, all of this might not make any sense, like, in a month. We might look back and go like, okay, none of this, like, this podcast was just hilariously wrong. So, take everything with a big grain of salt.
All right.
I mean,
and now let's move to the most controversial thing. They took the strongest commander and made him stronger.
Merciful?
Merciful. Yes.
The best commander.
Yeah, I can't believe it.
S+ tier.
New meta.
Permanent
Yeah.
banned.
What-
very
what-
weak.
By the way, we no longer have a troll commander. Now you can no longer troll people.
I feel like he's kind of a troll. Like I played him, and he's really hard to use.
The glorified thief.
The move is not very strong.
Well, but a glorified thief is better than Old Merciful.
I think it's still a style choice. I mean, he honestly to me still feels actually really weak. Maybe he'd be super strong like on a mixed base map where you can nab somebody's barracks from through a unit wall and then build a pike and then do a pike crit or something crazy like that. So he might be the most situational commander in the game.
So like on basic maps, I think you would probably need to buff him to make him useful. But you're right, on like some like very niche maps where you're able to actually capture a barracks without losing or already like winning tremendously. Because like I think right now if you capture a barracks, you're already in a really good position, or you've like really overextended and you're probably gonna die.
Maybe you could do some like crazy stuff because of like walls. Like on Lunatic, he could like he could go past the wall and capture a village.
Ooh.
So
But I
like
still
that.
think he's going to be objectively weaker than most other commander choices.
yeah, for
Yeah, and like I'm okay if he's a bit weaker still. I mean, like the logic behind this was
Give him
This is
something.
this is Tenry's old groove before the game released, and they give her Wind Rises or whatever it's called. is that like she could capture a building for free, and the code was left in the game, so we just kind of used it, and we were like, okay, we'll like see if this is actually like something you can make work.
Yeah, I think it's cool. I tried it out. It was interesting.
I mean, of course, on poorly designed maps, it'd probably be broken. Like any map that has a barracks or a contested production facility in the middle, then it goes to broken tier. So once again, no situational commander in the game.
Yeah. And if that is what he ends up being, then so be it. Like if he's really good on some maps and really bad on others, then
that's fine.
Yeah, and we'll see. We'll see if people enjoy him or not. Gilgamesh is definitely not a map that I think he'll do particularly well on, but
yeah, I lost horribly on Gilgamesh with him.
So let's talk about one of the biggest, in my opinion, biggest understated changes to commanders, and the last one. So Elodie's going to medium. Who thinks this is huge?
It's huge. Also, she now has a better Sigrid.
This is an Elodie now is a straight up better Sigrid.
Yeah.
Jams, I'm interested to hear your thoughts.
How do you say? The main problem I think with Elodie in the normal game is that you could get the groove, but then it's really hard to use and use again, right? If you're gonna use one groove per game, you're gonna choose someone else rather than Elodie, because your opponent can basically choose what you could grab, right? But then with medium, you have more liberty with that. Okay, I can't, get that golem, but I could get the spear, which allows my other spear to crit, and so forth.
Yeah.
Because before, you're kind of limited to what you could get. If you spend it on a spear, okay, that groove is not going to do much because you're not going to get another one ever again. But now you could have more freedom, and then once you use that, because you got it earlier, chances are you're going to get it again, and then you could threaten again with that groove.
Yeah, and I think at very slow, people would just sit on Elodie groove because, yeah, once again, you're only going to get one groove, and it has to be a game-winning play. And
that's slow, you mean?
Well, and compared to that, every other very slow commander, not very so sorry, every slow commander could just pretty much use their groove immediately and change the board state. But Elodie had to wait for the perfect opportunity.
Yeah.
We were gonna get like it was kind of almost like when it comes to golems and like dragons, it was like a glorified like insta kill like Sigrid or Wolfar has, because they're never gonna put the golem or the dragon in range. So like you're only ever gonna get like a mage or maybe a knight or a spear. So this kind of matches it, because like at medium, getting like a mage is pretty good, and getting a knight is really really good. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I thought the main use of the Elodie groove was to zone out higher tier units, so they can't like bully your commander around. Like normally, like if he's like a normal commander and make like a free dragon hit, even when they have groove up, isn't too risky. But that's like you have to get an instant kill if you're going against Elodie, or like set up for a next turn lethal if she decides to groove it. So this one it like makes that even stronger. So you really get punished if you have any powerful units near her, so she can be more aggressive.
Yeah, I actually have a small fear that she might be too strong at this point, because you can just sit on groove and you're just like, well, I have nothing to counter her. She just surrounds herself with an army and just makes a push, and there's not much you can do to stop her from making that push, because you need expensive units to stop it, and she'll just take it.
I mean, you look at to go into like some changes, like wheeled units are going to be more common, so she can't. When she get underneath a trebuchet, for example, with the new treb, but you could have a treb in your army, and that would zone her out a bit, or a ballista. So you could like pick away at her army from a distance that is more of an option. So like we'll see how this plays out with other changes.
I think Elodie now is properly statted in comparison to Terry, for example. Terry can also kill units out of nowhere, but she has a lot of range on it. So it makes sense that Terry is slow and Elodie is medium. Now Terry can actually use her own units to actually attack, and Elodie has the option doesn't has the option of actually stealing the unit. So there are two variations on the idea of I do something to a unit from like in the case of Terry, it extends to your own unit, but there's still variations on the same thing. And I think before, like at the same speed, it didn't make any sense because Terry had range and a lot of it. So I think Elodie going to medium makes all the sense in the world.
Just rename Elodie to Dark Tenry.
I should
I think
quickly go.
Elodie's power, though, is twice as effective as Tenry's is, though, because it's not just a kill, you're gaining a unit. So if you, like, capture, like a horse or a dragon, it's effectively like a swing of double that unit's cost, right?
They're very different units, though, because with Terry, you always have the option of moving a trebuchet forward 70% onto the headquarters. A harpy goes in and game over. Like they're different characters, right?
Yeah, like in terms of actual plays, it's like very different because Tenry can always just like kill your big unit. Oh, you have a dragon? Well, I kill that. Oh, you have a golem? Well, I can kill that. I have a trebuchet. I can put that in place. Or I have a worship. I'll get that into battle. Well, Tenry now is more targeting like the middle range units, the mages, the knights, the harpies.
Elodie, you mean?
Elodie, you mean, yeah.
Yeah, Elodie.
Yeah. But that's
So,
the
like, when
thing,
you double
like,
it,
it makes
you're not
sense that
doubling a big
Terry's
unit.
slow.
You're doubling a small unit.
Yeah.
I mean,
Pretty
like,
much, yeah. We'll see how it goes, though, honestly. This is just more... I think it's in a much more playable space. If she's overpowered, at least that's better than where she was before.
This is one of the
I don't
reasons
think-
I don't understand why it didn't come in in 2.0. Because people knew Elodie was needing to get faster.
people
like a year
were
ago.
Well,
still,
no.
actually in 1.3 meta, people were still using Elodie in tournament and winning with her.
Yeah.
That was like, I mean, obviously that isn't the case right now, but I think she still gets used a little bit. But like, she was actually getting used in like top 8 for Groove of War 3, so we were like, oh, maybe she's still okay, but as a super niche pick. But obviously, like now meta changes and
The level of play also increased, so people know how to
Yeah.
actually move around her. Just like Mercia, by the way. When I came back in January, Mercia was still considered a very strong pick. And like in the last 3-4 months, after 2.0 came out, she dropped off a cliff in like most people's
Mercia,
mind.
Mercia benefited a lot from spear formations though, because those were a lot more durable. Whereas like now, it is more about like trying to like pick off units one at a time. So things have changed in that regard. So Mercia is a victim of like meta change as well.
Also, like skill improvement. Like people are now they're better at playing against other commanders, and they're not just gonna get damage off and let Mercia heal up.
Yeah. So I mean, like Mercia is a commander we're keeping an eye on. Just as a like, we'll see. But I mean, just to go back to Sigurd for a second, you were talking about Elodie having this like, you don't put good units near her. One of Sigurd's new strengths is that area around Sigurd
Is larger.
is a lot bigger. Yeah,
Yeah.
so that is like a big buff. It's like if you put a dragon anywhere near her, she could run up and kill it. She can also do things like movement plus jump to eat is a longer range than the ballista will cover, or a trebuchet. So she can like hop over like an enemy like defensive line and eat the expensive unit behind it. So
it's more likely to hit a big unit because like it's if you turn to like cost effectiveness, it like you sort of gaining health at the cost of not gaining that unit. So if you kill a dragon, it's half as useful. Well, excluding the health as a normal Elodie ult.
Yeah, so like we'll see if that actually balances out correctly.
Oh yeah, as a side note, it's very annoying to play against those two commanders. Like it's fun playing as
them?
those commanders, but playing against them, you might
right.
not have a fun time. Just saying.
Good. Well, at least you get to listen to their musics now.
And now we have to do the mandatory get good comment.
Oh yeah, of course. Obviously, if you just get good, just don't let your commander die or your headquarters die, and you win. That's how you win the game.
Why didn't I think of that?
And they don't tell you that anywhere in the game. You just have to get good and figure it out.
Curses.
All right, I think that's enough for commanders. Let's quickly
move
go
to the
over
units, yeah.
some of these other things. Naval will touch last because I think that one's the most interesting and also the one that's most subject to change.
Yeah.
So it's
naval is very up in the air. We've already changed barges because they were bugged. So they
Also,
were
after
deleting units.
what we talked before the stream started, I'm starting to think that talking about naval will just make it worse. So I don't know if it's appropriate.
so yeah, maybe we just skip naval.
I mean,
We'll just have
we could give a brief mention, but also it's very
No talking points.
Lots
We'll just
of
ask
tentative
Gimbal what he
changes
said,
on naval.
what he's going for it, and then actually let's just do that right now. Nobody
Yeah.
else can mention anything. Gimbal, tell us what the goal with naval is.
So the original goal with naval was we wanted to make deep sea be a 50% speed increase rather than a 100% speed increase compared to regular sea. We ran into engine limitations that meant that wasn't possible, so we were like, okay, what do we do now? Someone mentioned you can make units move twice in one turn, so we decided to play around with that. And that is kind of where we're at. We make most units now will be able to move and attack or move twice, and that is like the general like design that we're trying to play around right now. We also gave turtles like an extra ability that like lets them jump behind units. They can't do anything after it, but it was just a fun thing that maybe it'll be good for like flanking.
It's a repurposed thief ability, right? It's the thief ability of going over gates, but it just works on units, right?
So the idea is that like you can trap a unit using a weakened turtle, for example.
Now we say these ships have more movement, but in total, because the way that the tile changes have worked, they have more movement, but they are actually like objectively slower in most cases.
Yes.
So even if they double move, I think there's some situations where they're moving the same amount of total squares as before, and sometimes they're moving less. But overall, if a naval unit wants to attack, they're moving less than they used to, and then making an attack.
Yeah, they have more actual move, but less attack move.
Yeah, and
less effective move, I would say.
Yeah, the one exception is Harpoon, which we also reduced the range of Warship and Harpoon. So Harpoon now only does 3 to 4 range, and Warship does 2 to 3. We definitely looked at a lot of Test Your Metal from May, and we were like getting a lot of feedback about stuff. So obviously, like in the main game, there's going to be a lot of trying to balance naval around that. But in this case, it was like, hey, we should probably take away some range from these units and like see how that plays out. But in the case of the Harpoon ship, it needed a bit of a range buff. So
it needed a movement buff. But anyways, all that's still up in the air. So
should we go back to land units?
Also, I will mention that barges in the current patch delete the units inside them when you move them. So, yeah, like naval, we're not taking this version super seriously because, it's a bit bad when barges delete units inside them.
Yeah, well, there's no water on Gilgamot anyways, so. Yeah.
That's just in case like anyone takes the mod and plays it on a different map.
Okay.
All right, to land units.
Giants.
Let's look at the one. Okay, there's only 3 changes to Giant, Mage, and Trebuchet. I'd say let's touch the Mage one first because that one's probably the smallest, but it is there is a very important interaction with the damage it is. What they've done is, so Mage versus Harpy has gone from a 1.4 base time multiplier to a 1.3, and I think
which has
Gimbal
got 1.3 to 1.2.
Yeah, and which has got 1.3 to 1.2. I don't know if that one has an important interaction, but I think Gimbal said with this Harpy one, that means you can take a sword and hit a full health mage, and then that full health mage will not be able to one-shot your Harpy.
Yes, or at least not consistently.
Not consistently. I don't know about the terrain what terrains matter and all that, and that's without a crit, but potentially it just takes a small bit of power away from the mage. I think
And if
there's
you-
probably a similar thing on the witch too. It potentially makes it so there's less one-shot injured mage, one-shot opportunities on heirs.
Yeah. And the other thing as well is that like a mage crit, if a mage could go below 50% health and still kill a harpy with a crit, which is pretty huge. So that I don't think is a thing anymore, or it's like super lucky. You have to be at like 50% or above to kill a harpy with a mage, even if you crit.
All right, I think that's that. Mages might need more nerfs in the future, but we'll see how it works out. Oh wait,
Yeah, I
you
gotta
wanted to say
drop
something?
off because I have a doctor's appointment. But this was fun.
But thanks
Thank you.
for
Hey, thanks for coming.
coming.
Yeah, I'll see you guys later.
See you later.
All right.
Take
Okay,
care.
Thanks for
bye bye. All right.
All right, Jams, you've been quiet for a while. How do you feel about this mage change?
Doesn't, to be honest, it doesn't change much because usually people keep their mages pretty safe. I mean, if you could damage the mage during an exchange with air on the board, then it's just going to be better for the harpy. Not worse for the mage, but better for the harpy. Because, I mean, it still does a lot of damage. Still does a lot of damage to everything else.
Yeah, I think that's what I was mentioning, that maybe it might still need a further nerf in the future. This might not be enough, but
I like the
I
direction.
don't know. Mages
I don't
were
like the
strong in this
numbers.
patch because golems could go on mountains,
Yep.
which is, another, I think is the next segue that we want to do. Golems can't stand on mountains anymore.
Bazik was trying to say something about mages.
Oh, sorry.
I was just commenting that I like the direction. I don't like the numbers. I think the numbers could be pushed a little bit more. But to do that, you would need to push some other units to actually pick up the slack. And my suggestion there would definitely be the archer. I think the archer should do decent damage, not good damage, not one-shot damage against air, but good damage. They like archer should be able to cripple air units, and right now they don't fill that role at all.
All
Okay.
right. So golems on mountains. That was pretty much a Groove of War 4. At least in my mind.
We
That
saw
was how that
a
game
lot of
worked.
golems.
I wouldn't say Groove of War 4. I would just straight up say that's a 2.0 thing. Like the meta right now is moving into heavy golem usage.
Yeah, and like one of the big counter units to golems was meant to be trebuchets, which were missing. So, like, I think if you look at their codex of like things they're weak to, it's like trebuchets,
And dragons, alright?
dragons, and warships. Those are the three. And we don't see a lot of warships on maps right now either. So
I mean, also
Right.
warships are good against everything, so...
that's true. But like those, like the three specific things golems are weak to.
Yeah. One of the things that I want to say about the Giants that I really like about this change, that is I don't think is the first thing most people think about when they look at this, is that it's not just that the golems can't move through mountains, is that they can't use the 40% defense. Because golems are really obnoxious when you have mountains on the map and you put a golem on top of it and it's just an immovable object. And
Oh, I mean, that I think was the main problem.
yeah,
I think
that's
the-
huge buff to the game.
Now, the other, actually very meaningful buff is the fact that getting into forest now takes 3 of a golem's movement instead of 2,
Yeah. That
which
will
is
be
going
weird.
to severely limit their options.
Yeah.
Just to like note that as well. Rivers as well, they take 3 movement to get into.
I think it's 4, actually, for rivers.
Yep, it's 4.
Yeah, for
Four.
fours. Yeah. So this option of changing it to riding might be a bit too much for those cases, but the mountain specifically, like golems not being able to stand on mountains, I think it's just a straight up upgrade to the unit.
I think it was like pretty overkill. Like they were like golems were slightly overtuned, and like the reason we saw them in Groove of War 4 so much was like the maps and the timers just kind of encouraged it. but like most maps heavily encourage dragon use, and most maps have like harpies being pretty good. So like golems weren't the problem. Like on Gilgamesh, no one was complaining about golem spam because you had like more normal air. And I think if anything, like the best direction to take with golems is to like buff harpy damage. So you have like another unit that can do decent damage to them.
Yeah.
Because right now harpies do like 12 average or something, or like 15, which is like nothing.
You want what, 20?
So maybe like buff it to like, I don't know, 25, 30.
50.
Similar-
Let's go
similar
straight to
to
50.
Like should be comparable to knights.
I actually like the
Yeah.
idea of buffing RPs. We talked about this a few weeks ago, I remember. Like, I really want RPs to be a bigger part of the game.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
you don't want them
Yeah.
to be too strong because I think then you get to that Advanced Wars thing where I get. Well, allegedly, I haven't really played it, but where battlecopters are all over the place because they're too effective. And I think maybe that's what they were trying to avoid with the original Harpy direction,
But
Chucklefish. That is.
you really can't get there when mages one-shot them.
The point is you keep mages strong, so then you can just kind of make harpies better, and you can have a nice fun air meta.
Yeah.
Like battlecopters were kind of crazy because of all the impassable terrain, so they could just easily speed past anti-air, and because anti-air were kind of a negative purchase. Like other than one-hit KOing infantry, they didn't do anything for you. You'd prefer to build tanks, so and like the Days of Ruin tried to fix this by like, well, they actually made anti-air even worse, but.
But they added the Duster.
But yeah, they added the Duster to counter air with air. So
So you think...
Oh shit!
so-
Timekey just actually made a good point about the Golem change. Real quick in chat, Emmerich Golem is funny. Emmerich's going to actually have a pretty good synergy with Golem because they'll be the only one that can get him
Yeah.
up to the
The 40%.
40%
yeah.
defense.
Yeah. But that's exactly the exact kind of buff, other than fast charge on Emmerich. No, very fast charge on Emmerich, because he's already fast. But this is the kind of buff that I actually want for Emmerich. So you touch up other stuff that interact better with Emmerich to make him better. Because Emmerich is on the cusp of being really, really good. But he has been like this for quite a long while. So
well, Emmerich
It's
just
nice
kind of
to
I think
get-
suffered from power creep. Like
yeah.
with so many strong, like once we start like nerfing all those overpowered commanders, like Vesper, like it already's happening with like Neuro getting more balanced, Caesar getting balanced, Ryota getting balanced. Once all those super oppressive commanders come down, then he can start to shine.
Yeah. By the way, Master, you haven't talked. So you said this change was a bit too much. You think everything about it is a bit too much, or do you think some parts of it like are a bit too much? Like what
I
I,
think
was
you should
talking
just,
about,
like-
just remove mountains
Well, like
and leave everything else. Like what are you
I
talking
would
about?
just keep it at. I think it's like all too much. I think you should just like keep the walking movement type. Like being able to go in mountains is totally fine, and just like change the harpy damage table so they do like maybe 30-40 against golems, so you have like another kind of counter against them, and maybe also slightly increase their price. But yeah, otherwise they're fine. They're not
Okay.
like a huge problem.
So
And the
more-
golems are nice to have because it's something that at least can stand up versus spears.
Okay.
Because like one problem you can have if we assume like golems are suddenly like some like niche unit again, is that if someone like spams a lot of spears, you don't have any units that can really take the hits other than commander. Because like dogs, swords all get one shot, mages get almost one shot, archers get one shot, knights get one shot. So you don't have any units that can tank spears hits other than spears.
Buff
So
Harpy
Golem
damage or
then-
spears.
Oh yeah, I would definitely buff damage against spears on some units. Like I really
Yeah,
think that we should have more units that one-shot spears.
So to give like a little bit of context, because I wrote like 3 paragraphs in the blog about it. One of them was like thematically it kind of makes sense, which is like where we start with like some of these changes is like what makes us thematically. Like the Sigrid changed, you know, she turns into a bat and flies around, so she gets like that extra jump. And like with this, it was like, you know, I've done some hiking, like I've done like going up rivers and stuff.
Oh yeah, and you're a
Um,
giant too, right? You're like 6'8".
So it's like just under 2 meters. So I'm a pretty big guy. Climbing mountains when you're large and heavy is not a thing you're very good at. Especially going back down them. And like traversing like dense forest, like, you know, I live in like a part of the world where there's like quite a lot of forest. I've like done a lot of like running around in the countryside, so it's like actually like moving through a dense forest as a big chunky golem is probably going to be pretty difficult to do, or it'll at very least like slow you down quite a bit. So that was the line of thinking, is like actually like this big thing made of solid rock is going to have trouble climbing mountains and going through forest and crossing rivers without sinking into the mud. So it was like, we'll start with that and then we'll work around it from there. It's also one of the changes that we just put in. I think this was actually the last change we made for this patch, or for this version of the update. So it's also one of the ones I'm more willing to walk back from and say, yeah, actually. But we'll see how it goes. They're still terrifying on like open terrain, and we will
Of course,
start.
it's a secret Wolfar buff too.
It is the secret Wolfar buff, but we'll see how it goes. Like, because obviously map design is going to be different for this mod as well. So maybe there won't be as much forest and mountain that blocks golems from like fighting into formations.
I think the mountains was more like stylistic. Like it just happened that Groove of War 4 had so many maps with a certain style, because like some of the maps we're seeing now, like Basilisk, like Dendritic, and Renegade Alchemy, they're like really, really open, and you see lots of knights. So the heavy forest and golem usage was just kind of by chance. Like, oh, those were the maps we had, those are the maps we tested, and that was it.
So, I mean, hell, like, hey, you could put golems on those maps, and maybe they're just completely fine, like, because there's very little difference for them. But we'll see. This is one of those things. I mean, this is the thing about this mod, is we're willing to make changes on the fly, and like, if we have good data that says, oh, we need to walk back something, then we can. And this is very much, of all the changes in this, like, I'm not gonna like lose sleep over having to like be like, oh well, I was wrong. Like, that's fine.
You can be a lot more ambitious than like say Chucklefish, who like if they make a mistake, they're gonna have players like going after them and saying how could they do this and how could they be so short-sighted and all that. Like, it's really easy to roll back.
Yeah, I was in a chat for a streamer who was streaming some Wargroove campaign, and he's a speedrunner, and he had some speedrunners come and chat, and they were like, the 2.0 update was awful, like, we have to like reroute all of our speedrun routes.
Oh no.
It's just like, I loved it, because the streamer was like, well, that's just the nature of video games, you just like have to do that sometimes. But yeah, it's like, when we make a change in this, it's going to affect dozens of people at most. Maybe more if people like watching games that are played on the mod, but yeah, we're not gonna like, you're not gonna break campaign, because imagine if you had to like suddenly play through the single player campaign with giants that can't move on mountains anymore. That changes everything. So yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Yep. So with that, let's move to trebuchets, which is the biggest change in land units. So
I know Math has some really probably has. I know Math, you're not a big fan of this change, or am I crazy?
So minimum range went from 2 to 4, so their range is different. Like they reduced the damage to structures from 0.85 to 0.65. So full HP crits still one shot regular structures, but the damage on like the crit on the headquarters is quite a bit nerfed.
Yeah, we actually made a small mistake as well to do with the damage calculations. They do consistently 2-shot structures over 2 turns, which wasn't intended. We wanted it so it would be like 3 turns. I'm not entirely sure how
what the headquarters you mean, or the
consistently with headquarters. It's because of the way the damage calc is done. We're gonna play around with that a bit, and hopefully. But the intention was that they would only very rarely 2-shot structures, if at all. We wanted it to be 3 turns.
Yeah, I think as long as the trebuchet is doing something like 55, so basically like the knight's crit, I think it's fine. But when it creeps up to the 70%, where stuff like harpies and whatnot can can suddenly do the second hit and actually destroy the headquarters is when you actually get into trouble. Like at
Yeah,
50
the idea
something,
is that,
it should be fine.
the idea was that, like, let's say you have a witch hex the trebuchet on turn 2, then that should be enough of a counterplay to give you like more time to like dislodge the trebuchet from its position.
Yeah. Yeah, but if you do it, but if the number is something like 52, then you can do it with the harpy, right? The witch, I mean. Then it should go to something like 47 or 46, and then you're golden. It survives because it needs over 2 turns. It no longer needs to do 100%. It needs to do 110 because there's the healing on destruction.
Yeah. I think right now it averages out above 110, which is the issue over 2 turns, just because of the way damage calc works, which I didn't account for. It's
right
not
now
like
it's actually guaranteed, like knights.
Yeah, because structure damage reduction is not 50%, which I thought it was. It's a bit more complicated than that, so we'll need to make some changes. It's actually closer to like 45% in a lot of cases.
So yeah, like my issue with the changes again, it isn't like the motivation. Like the motivation is good, and like what the areas you're trying to like fix are right. I just again kind of would prefer it to be done differently. Like it's like a stylistic kind of gripe. Like I went into a lot of detail on Discord, but like just to keep it short, like the Trebs mainly have 2 issues, which is like you have the HQ cheese factor, which just comes from their like excessive range combined with like cost, and then you also have their ability to kind of destroy like armies and command way too much space, and you can't really fight into them. So like the core changes you need to do is to increase the cost, so you can't just like spam them, and so like killing a treb becomes rewarding rather than it just being like rather than you losing value for like trading a dragon into a treb. And the other thing would be to just maybe to decrease the range from 5 to 4. That makes like a massive difference with how easy it is to hold a treb in HQ range, and makes it much more of like a finishing the game when you're already winning kind of play rather than a cheesy play that you can't really stop in a lot of situations. And then like there's also the smaller thing of like some interactions on planes where Golem will always kill Treb on planes and Dragon will always kill Treb on planes, because right now the average roll actually keeps the Treb alive, which is massive.
Yeah, and like we may end up doing some of those changes. This was very much I wrote 6 paragraphs. I'm not going to repeat all of them. But it is very much like thematically a trebuchet should be like this thing that hits stuff far away from it and does like quite a lot of damage. But the weakness is that it doesn't hit stuff close to it. So I mean, like we were going with the like how does a trebuchet kind of like work in real life kind of approach. And I think like if this change doesn't work, or if we still have problems after this change, then we can look at doing other stuff like you're suggesting. But this was like once again us being like thematically like how do we keep it within like the current theme of the game, or the current theme of like how it's meant to work and how trebuchets work and their place in actual like military usage. I mean, of course, like trebuchets don't really get used against armies, which is the thing, or as much anyway. So yeah, if you've ever played Age of Empires 2, you're not really hitting stuff with a trebuchet that moves.
Yeah, trebuchets are made to hit walls.
Yeah. So it's a bit awkward that they can still hit armies, but the idea is that like we're just giving it a big weakness, and hopefully that's like enough to make it and put it in a good place. Red's Jams had some stuff to say because I watched his video. So you mentioned stuff about Trebs.
What did I say in my video? I forgot.
Something about it having a skill cap now.
Oh yeah, it's just called less skilled players will have a harder time using this compared to higher skilled player.
Absolutely.
Because higher skilled player can still do the same thing as before, but then a lesser skilled player might move up too much and then realize, okay, I can't actually hit anything. Other than that, I mean, I would like the damage to units be reduced because, I mean, dealing damage to, like, high damage to everything kind of sucks, especially attacking into the trebuchet and you mess up somewhere and then you're like, okay, I basically lose the game there because trebuchets just one-shot everything. So that, I don't know. I feel like it could be changed differently too, right? So 4 range seems reasonable. So you just revert the minimum range back to 2 and then you give it 4 range. So you have 2 to 4. That would be a lot better to play against. Play with, then you still need a high skill level to use effectively. Because if it's 4 range, then it's harder to really push forward and stay there.
The major difference of making it 4 range is that suddenly the units that are right in front of the trebuchet, so it doesn't get, so the unit that's covering the trebuchet can now be attacked by an archer, and the trebuchet can't actually attack the archer, if I recall correctly. So it kind of changes the dynamics of how you do the whole engagement as soon as you change it to 4 range.
And the other thing is that, like, 1 range is kind of massive because it's like 1 less range that you keep the opponent out, and when you're advancing, it means you have to cover an extra square of, like, with meat shields and everything. Yeah. So it's like 1 less range is almost like 2 extra squares.
All right. Well, I think that sort of covers the balance changes for now.
I do. There is one last thing I'd like to say is that if you're using a trebuchet to cover your army, like the front, it has to be further back. This does open up opportunities for things like archers to come in and like hit without getting hit by the trebuchet. So there's like another interaction that's coming in there, which we'll see how that plays out as well.
I do like the short dead zone because I think that you can now make a reasonable push into it, and if they were using their treb to cover their army, like maybe they'd hit a unit in the back or hit the close unit and then break whatever wall you've pushed in, but at this point they might have to instead retreat the trebuchet instead of actually attacking with it because they can't hit the unit they want to hit.
Like, yeah. I might be very wrong, but I think with this change of pushing the range to 4 or 5 basically makes it so that the trebuchet is now exclusively a later game unit, because you really need to have stuff in front of it protecting it. Because 1 unit is not going to cut it. They just jump on your 1 unit, and they'll have enough free squares where the trebuchet can't attack to just place all their stuff in there. So, like, if you have enough to place in front of the trebuchet, you can counter the fact you can't attack on those first few squares, but it will definitely push the trebuchet into a later unit, into a later game unit, which I think is a good thing.
All right, next slide.
Let's go. Fog.
All right, I am just going to literally be muted for this whole thing because I have nothing of relevance to say about Fog.
So I played a game on Fog.
I also played a game.
My PC had issues, and I upgraded to Windows 10, which is fine, and it started working fine again. But I didn't know if that was going to be the case, so I DQ'd myself out of all the matches I hadn't played. So I played 1 real game on Fog. I think it's a fun format. I don't know if it's for me personally, but like my impressions are it plays very, very differently, and in a way that I think because of the changes they've made is actually like I can see why this is very appealing to people. It also heavily changes the balance around a lot of commanders. So commanders like Valdar are way stronger on Fog. He was already like a pretty strong commander, but I think he's super good now. But And some commanders are a lot weaker. Like Ryota is like significantly weaker in fog than he is normally. And like Wolfire, I think as well. So yeah.
Clearly, the best commander in fog is Merciful, as we can see on the tier list.
Yeah, but that doesn't change. He's always the best commander in standard, also. So it's not really because of fog.
That fog's not part of the problem here, or
In fact,
the
even
strength.
worse in fog because like we haven't figured out naval in fog really, so he can't use his groove as much. It's more situation.
True. I mean, I talked a lot. I mean, I basically made the entire video for that tier list, so you guys can just check that out. I covered everything there. I mean, there might be some disagreements, but I think most of it is fine. Maybe some of it can go up, some of it can go down, but I think this is a good starting point for anyone who is interested in playing Fog. Fog maps are still pretty new, so the direction of this could also change because Fog is pretty dependent on the map, right? If you don't have a lot of mountains, the amount of vision you get reduces by a lot. Number of barracks on the map also changes because, I mean, you could get out dogs a lot more easily, and then dogs give you vision, obviously. So you get more vision, you have more information that you can work with. But at the same time, 2 barracks compared to 1 barracks plays a lot differently. So, and well, some parts are still the same, but I don't know where I'm going with this. But yes, map dependent.
Yeah, so I really enjoyed the new fog. Like it's really fun to play, and like you can actually like play it and have a good competitive experience. Like you're actually playing fog. You don't see everything, and it's just that you can't see what they're building, and if they have like a dragon hiding in the darkness. So it's really enjoyable. It's a really good experience. Some of the things we are seeing is that like Chucklefish's decision to give dogs 3 range kind of eliminates any kind of cheap recon unit that you would have in Advance Wars, which has been kind of hindering things a bit. One of the solutions, I think, like as like Red Jams mentioned, is to integrate more use of mountains because they can increase the amount of vision that like foot soldiers and dogs will give. So that's one potential kind of fix for it. Like in general, like the early maps were drawing really heavily on what we know from Advance Wars and that kind of fog map design. And in a nutshell, most of the maps just tend to be like in Advance Wars very open, light terrain, minimal forest use, and like really minimal mountain use. And it kind of creates like a interesting dynamic. It's pretty strategic. In Wargroove, you kind of see those same elements. Like it's strategic. It's a kind of a slower game. You have to be more careful. You don't want to rush in. You need to kind of scout before you move in. And yeah, it can also be really punishing. Like you can lose games really easily. Like I think a bunch of the games are going on YouTube. And you can see some of the games I played. Like I lost really early. Like I played once against TFJ, and I set up a trap for his commander, and then the trap didn't end up working, so I just lost on the spot. And yeah, I had one like Red Jams where against Red Jams, and I think I threw away like my army at one point. So it's really punishing, but it's pretty fun.
I mean, I died like turn 6 because Faded rushed the dragon and just died instantly. So there's that. I mean, I think there's just a different skill set when you play Fog, and people might not like realize that at first. So I think that's why people have like a difference in opinion for Fog maps and non-Fog maps, because people value like, okay, I know the information, I know what they're doing, I know what I'm gonna do in the non-Fog maps, but then other people value like, okay, I need to risk assess the situation. If he has a dragon, I have to preemptively build a mage, or I'm gonna sneak a knight in the corner along with like a dog and a soldier. So people have that like that difference in opinion, and they just have a difference of taste, I guess.
And like we also kind of saw that in Advance Wars also, like some people just don't play Fog at all because they don't like that you have hidden information, and you have like whole communities that like in Advance Wars there's like the Chinese community who like almost exclusively play Fog. So like it's just a matter of taste and what people like, but it's really nice. You have like another new full game mode for people to play. Regarding like impressions on like what new stuff we kind of learned, I think Regim's tier list is pretty spot on. Like with any tier list, you can argue about some individual placements, maybe moving up a tier, down a tier, but it's very accurate. Regarding forest use, I've like initially because of dogs seeing into forests, there was kind of belief that you could be more heavy on forest use, but it ends up that because forests have a 30% defense reduction, and if you don't have a dog, you still need units to spot the units that are in the forests. You still have to be pretty sparse with forests. You can't just spam them like Advance Wars. So, like you can see the map in Test Your Metal May was made by me, and then I put out a new version shortly after I played some of the games to accommodate that. So, like there was the forest accumulation. I split that up a bit, and I also added some more mountains to give better vision. Because right now I see that without cheap scouting units, you really need like mountains to kind of secure your progress. So you have an idea of what's around, and you're not kind of running in blind.
I will say,
Yeah, go ahead.
we had some pretty negative feedback from people about the map, so we are going to be trying a bunch of different types of map over the next few months, just to see like what people also enjoy as well as what works. And like, it's good to hear that people are enjoying Forgotten Battlefield. And I hope the new version that you've made is like an improvement over the current version. But like we'll be trying a bunch of stuff, and also we're open to stuff like having 2 fog events in Test Your Metal each month, because if like the crowd that wants to play Fog of War, like if I think that Fog of War for May was like might even been the biggest Test Your Metal event we've ever held. So if the amount of people that enter in June are still like, if they're still really interested in enjoying Fog and there's large enough demands, then we'll start doing multiple Fog events each month and trying like different types of map to like cover what people like and are interested in.
That's like definitely a good point. Like Forgotten Battlefield was like designed to be like a very, very safe design, so that like it's not going to break randomly, but like you can get some okay quality games, so we can further kind of explore the meta. Like I deliberately chose to make the units come out really, really delayed, so you could actually have some like gameplay developed, and you're not going to have cheese strats where like you steal some villages from the opponent, or commanders would like heavily bully. But like as we develop the meta, we can figure out like we can push the limits and see how fast we can get the game to develop, how much commander bullying is okay, and all that. The number of Raxes is also a special thing. Like normally in standard, we go 2 Raxes. Kind of works out to be the best. In Fog for now, I've been trying to stick to 1 Rax, mostly because like Fog maps are designed to be much, much bigger. When you take the Rax to map ratio. So just in the interest of trying to like fit it into the event, I was trying to make I was trying to stick to 1 Rax, because I made another one that was 2 Rax in a similar vein, and it was like crazy large. And I played it versus Red Jams, and the game took really long to finish.
Oh,
And it was like
I remember.
lethal.
And yes, welcome Time Key. He's here now.
Yeah. I actually made some streamers play on that because they wanted to play Fog. So I was like, oh, okay, here's a Fog map. Yeah, that map was even bigger.
Yeah. So it was probably a bit excessive, but yeah. So that's why I was sticking to 1 Rax. But in Test Your Metal June, there's a 2 Rax map made by Faded Sun, and so we'll be able to see how easily people are able to finish it, because that was at least my main concern. Because like I was like, fog takes a lot longer than standard, and the maps are bigger, so we want matches to finish so we can collect data to make better maps and kind of continue the process. One other thing is that that for now has been a bit of a hindrance from making maps is that, like, I know that like for test your metal events, there's a lot of enthusiasm to play fog events, but for map testing, there hasn't been that same enthusiasm, so it's been harder to test those maps. So we've kind of been stalled on that front. It's been slow.
Oh, I also wanted to ask what kind of feedback you got for the vlog maps. I'm interested to like hear what people said. Is it like too long, too big, too sparse?
I think I don't know if I want to quote it word for word because it was pretty harsh feedback, but it was just like I think Math covered it well, and that like the production's really far back, so it takes a while for anything to like really get into it, and like I feel like a lot of people like having more action-paced games. But like the feedback was definitely like, this is not enjoyable at all, and I don't want to play on a map like this again. So, but we'll see, because like there's obviously like a lot of room to explore how fog can work, and like I don't think Forgotten Battlefield is like, from my perspective, I don't think it's a bad map. I just didn't enjoy it that much. But I can definitely see that, like, oh, there's actually like really good competitive play happening here. So it's that thing of like, I mean, like going back to the mod very quickly, like it wasn't just about balancing things; it was about making things like enjoyable for people. So you need to throw in like a bit of like a bit of grind occasionally. You got to like make it so that like things aren't always like 100%. I don't want to say fair, but like you got to have like a bit of
well, like you have the people can actually play the game or something.
Yeah.
We wanted to make sure the map wasn't going to break. It's kind of like with the Nuru change, you like ban the problem units just to make sure it works. So that was the thing. Like I was designing it like before 2.0, and I knew that even once we get or not, but before the fog patch, and I knew even when we were going to get it, like the meta will take time to develop. So I just needed something that will hold up decently well, so we can get some sort of idea.
Yeah.
So that it's not going to instantly break, and then we have to say, oh, make a new map because this one is cheese and it's FTA and dragons are totally unfair.
Yeah, and like going into like Groove War 4 with the maps for that, we had the same thing. Is like we have a month to like figure out how to get these maps into a point. We'll figure out a map pool that will like not break 3 months down the line, because that's how long this event could potentially last. So we went for really safe choices in our eyes. I mean, obviously, like I think they held up okay-ish, but obviously, like we can do better and we know more now. So it'll be the same with Fog. Is like everything's just a learning experience.
So yeah, I think like Fog is really enjoyable, and hopefully we'll be able to run more events. I think the only thing with running 2 events per month is we need people to be testing the maps so that we can actually run out maps that are like different maps every month. Like maybe we'll like run this like similar maps, like the same maps we already ran, and with like changes to make them better. But like ideally we get different maps tested each one. But for that we need people testing the maps not only in Test Your Metal but outside, because that's really the most important. Because it's like,
yeah, I mean, also, I mean, just out there, I was looking at existing maps and I was like, I wonder if any of these could work with Fog. And Ominous, I think, might work in Fog, maybe with minimal changes, but I'm kind of interested in playing that at some point with some Fog.
it's like a ton of potential in that area, like modifying existing maps. Like I think the One Rax maps especially, they tend to be really easy to port over because they tend to be more open, and they give you a lot of objectives. So you just take those maps, you make them a little bit bigger, and and then you have like probably a pretty decent Fog map. You could probably do something similar with 2 racks, but depending on how much gimmicks there are, it can be more difficult. Like I made a remake of Minotaur, and like one other thing I tried to do to speed up the mid game a bit is use a gate that like if you use the gate spawn, like if you kill the gate, you get a new spawn, and then using that spawn you can access the battlefield much quicker. So I think that has a lot of potential just to slow down the early games. So you don't have like crazy capture phase shenanigans and commanders stealing villages. But then once you get into the mid game, you actually have units coming out much more quickly. So that can kind of give a fix to some of the complaints that people had and some of the speed issues.
I do wonder if like there is an interest from a certain part of the player base in having like maps where like people, it's like super grimy all the time and people are constantly stealing villages and doing like some.
Can I ask something? So, if the problem is just that you want to delay the first few turns, why not just make a path that's really good, but you have a gate in front of it, and a path that's really bad, but you don't have anything? So, basically, in the early game, you gotta go around, but eventually you want to break that gate so you can start moving your units through there.
That's exactly what I tried to do with that Minotaur remake, and I think that has like a lot of potential. That like you have paths going around that are pretty bad and slow, but you also have a gate that you'll slowly chip away at, and then that gets you there into the battle very fast. I guess like other aspects of Fog, I think it has a lot of potential as a live format, and especially as maybe a more competitive kind of maybe event, because like the potential like cheating concerns of second account is kind of mitigated because you can check how many spectators there are, and like people like trying to cheat would take like too long. It's not viable on a timer. Also, like turning on sound is like better, and lack of replay system is mitigated when you play it live, since you remember approximately where all the units were. So I think it actually has a lot of potential in a live format, and yeah, so I'm hopeful. And the one like the spectating has it can be a problem in terms of cheating, but it's very very good for like for streaming.
Maybe
because you can see everything.
maybe someone should actually try streaming with live fog match and see how that goes.
I want to do so. When 2.0 came out, we did that show match series, right?
Oh yeah, Stronghold.
Yeah, that file thing. We're looking at doing that again, probably sometime this month, maybe towards the end of the month.
But I think there's like there isn't a big discussion, but there is something like I noticed in Red Jam's video about the fog list. They mentioned sound. Like I read some of the comments in Red Jam's video. Yeah, I mean it's actually big because like I was playing CMA and I heard a ballista and I just because I knew he had a ballista, I just immediately started playing differently because I knew he had it.
I don't understand why you hear units that are inside fog.
Right, and you see like the player base is divided. Some people like the sound because it would anticipate something and not just die from a random dragon, and then some other people don't like the sound because it doesn't make any sense. So it's a hard thing to tackle. My take on it is, if my opponent is using sound, I could use sound. If my opponent chooses not to use sound, I'll just not use sound. Like whatever my opponent does, I'll match it. And if I don't know, I'll just base it off the mood. If I really want to win, just turn on the sound, right? Lower the music to 0 and turn the sound to max.
Now, I'm not. No, I want to weigh here on a second. I'm not sure if Chucklefish ever completely tackled or fixed the bug where you can only hear the sound, like in certain cases between certain consoles. Because I remember in 1.3 there was an issue where I could not hear the sound if I was on the Switch and my opponent was on PC.
They fixed it because I was playing Gimbal and I remember I heard his knight.
Okay. Okay, yeah, so I guess they did touch. I didn't remember ever seeing that in the patch notes anywhere, but I just remember that being an issue.
Yeah, I remember very clearly. I heard his knight and I just immediately noted it down.
Also, the question of doing the live commentary, it's just a question of getting a big delay. So instead of doing 30-second delay, you do something like 5 minutes, and the problem goes away.
Yeah, like I see Burke is mentioning that couldn't someone cheat using the stream? But yeah, you could like set like a 5-minute delay, and then suddenly like cheating with the fog stream becomes comparable to cheating in standard. Like getting to see what they have a few like maybe a turn ago or 2 turns ago is somewhat comparable to trying to like stream snipe like during a Groove War game or like reading chat where people are talking about like lethals and stuff. It's not like you would think it's like a massive advantage, but when you get better at fog, it's a lot less so because you get an understanding of when they're going to build what kind of units and what they have where approximately. And like the community has been very good. Like we haven't had any issues with people cheating off streams, so
At least we haven't caught anyone.
Yeah, it's not cheating. It's not. It's only cheating if you get caught.
But yeah, the worst offenders we've had as far as like people breaking rules is like new players coming into multi-commander and like picking the same commander twice. But I'm pretty forgiving about newer players doing it because they always apologize and they always go and play their matches again because they like realize that they made the mistake.
It happens. I remember at the start of this TYM, someone like I don't remember who it was, but it was like some player that has been here for quite a while, and they made a mistake and they just decided to restart the match. It's not really a big deal, in my opinion. You just as long as you're cool about it and just restart the match in a timely manner, I think it's fine. The problem I think is like you get to the end of the TYM and you go look at the matches and they're all the same commander. Like that's in bad faith, right?
Yeah, like that's the kind of thing we're really caring about. Like, but yeah, when it's like innocent mistake, I mean, like people forget because like if you're making 18 matches or something and playing those out in a month, like you will kind of forget and lose track.
Yeah. You can also be like in 2 or 3 multi-commanders at the same time, and you confuse which like maps you have which commanders. And when you have a lot of games running at the same time, it's easy to make a mistake, right?
Yeah.
I actually write it down to prevent myself from doing that.
Yeah, I was gonna say like writing it down is like just having a little bit of paper and just like taking a quick note, probably enough.
you can also you can also enter in both any commander and multi-commander, and then you have the same map and
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think anybody in the right mind does that though.
There's a couple of people I've seen enter the same map twice, but it's rare. And like,
They weren't around for the first Testra medal then, where everybody had to play 10
20
matches
games
on
on Capo.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh no. Oh no.
that was back when we had a two event limit.
I mean,
the round robins got big.
The
Yeah,
first
that was
TYM
something.
when I came back was double butterfly, double what was the map? It's
Oblivion, I think.
Which one?
Oblivion.
I think when they had Butterfly, it was Oblivion.
Yeah, exactly. Like because there was a 1.3 version and a 2.0 version.
Oh yeah.
So a lot of the maps were doubled.
anyway, I mean, I don't think you should take the event too seriously. It's supposed to be a casual, relaxed.
Yeah.
TYM
I mean,
is a
we
good
play a
way
bunch
to
of
get
matches and then you have fun with it. Shouldn't be like a super serious. Okay, I must win. If I don't win, I suck at the game. I'm gonna uninstall. Okay, it's not gonna be like that.
Yeah.
Whoa! What about our message to get good?
That's
it still stands.
Yeah.
It still stands. Always stands. Get good is the motto.
You get good by playing the game, but if you don't even play the game, how do you get good, right?
So wait, Test Your Metal is a way to get good. We should just rename it to Get Good.
You're trying to rename the podcast every week now.
Yeah.
I'm derailing. I'm just trolling here.
But
yeah, no. If you ever stream fog, would you force the players to like not put sound on, or
you can't do
it? No,
it.
I would never. If something is in the game, unless it's something like double hit bug or something like that, Like,
Okay, yeah.
but like people hearing the sound is just like it's a thing that's in the game. So like I wouldn't enforce it. I also have zero way of enforcing it. So
Right.
Which is the
That's
bigger part
true.
of the equation.
yeah, I mean, like with anything like this, you just assume that it's intended to be that way. So
Yeah.
the only way we would ever do something like that, and I don't think we would ever do it this way, is if we had a mod that removed sound.
Yeah, I don't think that makes sense. Like, it's one of those things people just need to learn to live with it.
Right.
Like sound for live makes a ton of sense because like the advantage of like one of the main things you don't want to see in a live game is like someone losing really early because there was a dragon snipe. So sound
Yeah.
kind of prevents those like cheesy stuff because if they build a dragon, okay, you know. If they build a treb, you know. So it's mostly useful for like that, those kind of like wacky options, or like for golem.
Now, I will say, this is
whoops.
actually an important point here about the sound, is that the different factions have different sounds for different things, and the sounds are not actually
Oh yeah, like
exactly the
Valheim
same all the way across. Yeah,
I-
Valheim,
It's not
everything's
uniform.
is
I actually
obvious.
have quite a hot. I believe to be a hot take on this subject matter. I look at sound in Wargroove the same way I look at steroids in sports. The problem here is if one player uses, everyone needs to use it, and there are people, and I would say enough people, that would prefer to be able to play the game without having to be super attentive at the sounds and knowing exactly like which sounds mean what, and like counting, okay, I heard this sound 3 times, so I know it's 3 soldiers, and I like
Basically, you don't want the game to be in Visigun 2.0.
yeah, basically that. Like you're inputting some features into the game that I don't think are part of the base game. So I don't think it's a problem. Like if everyone uses it, obviously it's fine. But it's kind of, if one player uses it, everyone else needs to use it too, right?
Oh, I mean, like, there is to go on your point. Like, it would suck if like your phone rang while, like
Yeah.
the person was moving, like your opponent was moving their unit.
They've just happened to move their giant.
Or if you're playing in a place where you can't hear properly, like because like you're participating in a TYM for Wargroove. Like TYM is not a good example because you could play it your turn whenever you want. But let's say you're playing a time-sensitive game for Fog for whatever reason, and you need to play that game right then and there, and the only place you can play it at is like a coffee shop somewhere, and you have crappy headphones with a lot of noise around you, and suddenly you're playing at a big disadvantage because you can't have proper sound. Like,
Yeah,
I don't know if I
actually,
like that kind of thing to happen, right?
going for like a kind of extreme example of that, because there's no like subtitle equivalent. Like, if you're physically not able to hear those sounds, like
Yeah, that's even worse. I wasn't going that far.
But it does kind of suck, right? Like, if you're deaf, then you can't compete on the same level.
You're just screwed, yeah. Absolutely.
I mean, in the same way, if you're missing a hand, you can't compete on the same level in the live matches.
Actually, if you're missing a hand, you're pretty fine.
I play just with like my mouse when I'm playing matches, and you can compete.
But you see, but you can't really. We can't really consider that like a real thing. Like if somebody has a disability,
it's not the same level we're talking here. Like missing a hand will impair you slightly. Like if you're playing against a player that is quite a bit faster than you, the game might be decided because of that. But what we're talking here is not the game might be decided by that. We're talking about a factor that changes everything about how you play the game, right? The units you make change because if you're hearing what the other guy has. Like, you don't have anti-air. You hear a dragon moving. Okay, I'm starting to make anti-air right now. So it changes everything. It's not just that you're playing, like, slightly slower than you could possibly play if you wanted, if you have both hands. It's not as low level as the kind of example you were giving. Like, I understand where you're getting at.
If you have no hands, then how about that?
Yeah, I understand where you're getting at, but it's not the same thing.
It's the truth is, unfortunately, if you're deaf, you probably cannot compete in the fog thing, and you're such a small minority. It'd be such a small minority of this community that it's not really something that would be viable to address. If it made it
And
worse
I'm
experience for
going to put
everybody.
it in another way. I don't think having sounds, and I might be completely wrong here. I'm not good with fog. Personally, I don't like it, but that's a completely different matter. And I might be completely off base here, but I don't think sounds in fog adds that much to the game. I think as players get better at looking at the numbers, so looking at the gold before your opponent's turn start, and understanding
You
how
can't see
that
the
gold
opponent's
goes
gold
down.
on their turn.
You can see the gold they had when you were playing, right?
No, you can't. It's hidden,
Hidden.
from them.
It's hidden. Okay, that's a problem.
In the base game, it wasn't hidden, and that's actually a fog change that they made because it
I
was
don't like
oh,
that change. That change is bad. Just straight up bad.
Well, what I would say is that, like, first of all, I would say sound is a pretty minor thing. I agree with Bazik at that point. Like, it's if you're deaf, you're not at a disadvantage like at all against someone who is sound. Like, the main thing is it's nice to have because you know if they have a dragon, you know if they have a golem, you know if they have a treb, and you know if they have a ballista. And other than that, it doesn't really matter that much. Like, it's if you're playing no sound and they're playing sound, it's a minor advantage to them. And then, like, the main advantage of playing, I think, sound in live versus async is that in async it's very annoying to try to remember what they had because you might have heard the sound at one point and then you play your turn a few days later and then they played their turn and you don't remember what happened in that game a few turns ago and what sounds you heard because you're playing like 5 other games.
Yep.
With live, you can actually remember it, and it can enhance, I think, the experience for the players because they don't get cheesed, and also for the viewers because they get to see a more interesting match.
Like, that's why fog is cool. It's about the cheese.
So, like, I
think it's nice to have those like quality of life kind of things that, like, okay, if they have a big unit that could totally mess up your plan, you have a little bit of warning.
Yeah, like, I think if the direction that Chucklefish intends fog to be is that there is sound, I would like to see some kind of like subtitle.
Yeah, that would fix it. Yeah,
because that like subtitles. Because then, like, you can be like, oh, there's like a ballista moving, oh, there's a dragon.
Like adding contextual subtitles, like soldier moves, ballista moves, trebuchet moves, dragon moves, and you could just read it. Then it would be completely fine.
Like, in a potential Wargroove 2.0, if they make a replay system, then they could have like a log like AWBW has and list like everything because it's intended to have sound, everything that moved. Like in AWBW, it hides it because there's no sound and you're not intended to know what they have. But they could easily do that in a kind of beefed up replay system.
Yeah. Honestly, I still think that not having any information about what's inside fog is just enhances the experience because it means you have to use your other skills to infer what your opponent should have instead of just waiting to hear the sound of the unit move, which is a lower level skill. But that's just me.
Yeah, like, it doesn't really matter, but to me, either way, like, either or is totally fine. It'll just be what people prefer. And, like, we could always try to come up with a mod that disables, like, sound if we really want to.
Yeah, well, I think there hasn't been enough games where people have said, oh, yeah, man, if their, sound is broken and stuff like that. But yeah, it's definitely an advantage, but there hasn't been enough games to tell us if really it's a decisive advantage.
Yeah, so it'll come down to, like, we'll run some more fog stuff. The show matches thing I mentioned earlier, we could have a fog match. There's nothing stopping that. It just means we have to change how the stream delay works, but I think people would be very down for, like, having a fog of war match.
Yeah.
So one thing the only thing I want to stray away from with that is, like, I don't want to run a mod show match. Like, that's very much intended. Like, mod stuff is very much intended to be just a fun side thing.
Not even a balance mod show match.
Not at the moment. If 6 months down the line and we're doing another show match series and the balance mod is somewhere where we know it's in a good place, and, like, I'm going to be streaming more again. So if people want to play just like random mod matches and I'll commentate them, then I'm game for that. But if we're doing a big promotional thing, which is probably what this is going to be, then yeah, like I want to keep it to just like the actual core gameplay experience for now.
I'll definitely be playing quite a bit of games in the mod as soon as I'm finished with my current Kingdom Hearts run.
I think with the mod, it's like a bit too hard to speculate too much into the future because, like, sure, if in a year from now, maybe like Chucklefish stops doing any kind of balance updates, no like number changes, none of that, then maybe like, oh, we have some like annoying balance considerations we want to fix, then we try to fix those. But it's too hard to kind of project too much into the future.
I think they're done.
And like, as long as I think they've already said that they're pretty committed to doing like number change type changes. So as long as they're doing that, I think it's going to be hard for a mod to pick up too much traction.
You think they're
Because,
going to
like,
finish
always-
Westbrook and come back to Wargroove? One?
Will not come back to Wargroove. Like I think like maybe every 6 months or something. For every 5 months, they might like do it like a number change. Like okay, Elodie goes up to medium, Caesar goes down to slow. Like Vesper goes down to very slow. Okay, Golem goes up to 1300. I don't know. Spear goes up to 300. Treb goes to 1500. Like stuff like that.
I don't think they've ever shown availability for that kind of frequent updating. That isn't frequent, by the way, at all, but like every 6 months is way better than anything they've done up till now, right?
Well, they've been looking at doing that. Like that was actually the plan totally post 2.0. Like we didn't expect for 2.1 to actually totally fix fog, but I think like T was very enthusiastic about it, and he was like disappointed about the state of fog. So I guess they pushed it through. But yeah, that was always their plan after 2.0.
Because honestly, I think what they should do after Witchbrook, if they want to go back to Wargroove, is start working on Wargroove 2. And every like minute they waste on Wargroove 1, as soon as they start Wargroove 2, I think it's time they shouldn't be spending on Wargroove 1, if I'm being honest.
And like, I mean, the one thing I would say is I'm not going to be like super bragging about how amazing the mod is and all that, and it'll influence everything. But I do think if we can like gather a bunch of information by doing stuff ourselves, like even if they don't end up using the changes, like at least it's available and out there for them.
I think you're selling yourself short. I think there's a good possibility where in a few months we can easily look at the mod and say it's just a better gaming experience. We can get there, we just need to take it seriously.
Yeah, I mean that is also like the dream, right? Is that they put in like a kind of switch in the game that people can hit, and it's like now you're playing this mods, but you know, like you have to get to that point first.
Now you're playing no RNG.
No RNG.
Whoa! That ends the chat right there.
If we could shut down RNG on the mod, I would be down on
We're
it. Like I would be a big fan of that.
Here's a change. So this is the thing we were looking into, and it's like something I've been talking about for a long time, and we're in a position where we can try it out. Is not removing RNG completely, but limiting it so it like doesn't go beyond 10%. So like an archer, instead of dealing 5 to 15 damage, deals 9 to 11 damage. Like that kind of limitation.
Like if you do it like that, people will get more angry. It's like, just one more percent.
1%. Oh.
I just thought
36%.
RNG was not on the list today.
I understand what you guys are saying, but I would still be okay and think that would be an improvement, like a big improvement.
We quite literally can turn off RNG. Yeah, it literally can already be turned off.
I think the problem with that is there's enough people that actually like RNG that it would really split people. I would rather like, I just think like, you know, we can try it testing lots of things. And we're going super off topic, but whatever.
Yeah.
We can try lots of things. We have all the time in the world. Nobody's going outside for a bit longer, hopefully. So
hopefully. Like, that's me.
But I've been stuck inside for 3 weeks.
Wait, I'm the only American here, so
stay inside and play more Wargroove.
I mean, my point is, like, we have time to test stuff, so if we try
absolutely.
no RNG, like, I want to try limited RNG first, and then see how that goes, and then like, if people really want no RNG, we can try that for a while.
I know people are very happy with fog, but there are two things that supposedly are close in the pipeline that I'm really curious about. One of them is turn timers, and the other one is is definitely the balance changes. Those two things I'm really curious.
One other big quality of life thing that the no RNG mod that the Zeronix made actually has, and would be nice in the balance mod, is to have like a kind of a glow checker. Like Zeronix mod had it that you can kind of click on any unit and check an opponent's unit, and you can see how much damage it would do. And that's really nice to have, because then you don't have to reference the off-game calculator all the time.
Right. And to be fair, and also to say this should be the last thing we talk about, that actually was bugged and had to be taken out because they didn't program it incorrectly, and units, you were like merfolk where you could like do ranged attacks, or an archer would get range attack countered by like everything at a ranged attack at that point.
And with indirects, but like that.
Yeah. Anyways, I think this should I think we touched all the topics we wanted to touch today, and we're dragging to the 2-hour plus mark here.
Can I give a quick shout out to Tester Metal June? Sign-ups close Friday evening. Actually, sign-ups are quite low right now, but it's also still, there's a lot of time until like they actually close, so people probably still taking time to decide. But yeah, go sign up, because like it'll be a fun event.
Is it already up, the 2 in June?
Yeah.
Yep.
For a while.
We'll
probably do like another announcement on Friday. Just be like, hey, go sign up.
Yeah, Gimbal even posted on Reddit, so.
Yeah, I posted on Reddit. I got a lot of upvotes, which I'm happy to see.
He's nice.
Farming that karma. All right, well, this has been podcast number 8. Almost in double digits. That's
Number
exciting.
8.
I am not your host, Dr. Killsauce. That's my outro.
Cool. I just want to give like a couple quick teasers. There's a lot of cool stuff coming up. I've been pretty silent. I haven't been on the podcast in a while. I've just been like a combination of ill and working on lots of things. So there will be cool news that you'll hear about soon. We're just kind of like still doing a bunch of post-event stuff for Groove of War 4. But yeah, there's going to be a bunch of stuff. Also, Groove of War 5 isn't likely to happen for a little while, because really cool stuff has been happening behind the scenes. That means we're going to have to delay actually running it, because we want to make sure the event is good, and like really good. So yes, really, really positive stuff and cool things that are coming down the pipeline. It's just going to mean that some things are going to be delayed a little, but it's all good.
Okay, Red Gems?
Oh, okay, I'm Red Jams. I make content. You're probably going to be watching this on my channel anyways, but if you're not, you can search me up on YouTube and you find Wargroove related content.
Master of Math.
Yeah, hi, I'm Master of Math. Come to the testing or test maps, test fog maps if you want to see more fog maps. Yeah, testing maps is fun. Testing maps is great, and you'll be more happy in life if you test maps.
Thank you.
On the time key, I joined this podcast late, so yeah.
Nice. Okay, and I'm Basic. This has been Wargroove podcast number 8. Hopefully we'll be back here next week. Unfortunately, we skipped one. This has been super fun. Thanks for watching.